Welcome everyone. Welcome back. Season 2 here. I'm gonna get my earbuds plugged in. All right, let's get started. Welcome back. This is gonna be episode 2 of season 2, which I'm super excited about. Happy and excited that Maddie is here from the Butterfly Club, which is a shop that I stumbled upon. I guess it was a few months back. It's just down the street from my apartment in New York City. And the Butterfly Club is a retail shop and store, and everything inside is sustainable. It's from designers that focus on sustainability, and it's all like supporting small businesses. And what I've learned more as I looked on the website, Maddie, was it's also encouraging people to shop slow and think about, where these businesses are coming from and who they're helping and what communities are helping. So that is my take on the Butterfly Club, but I'll hand it over to you so you can tell us more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. We've been talking about this for a little bit. And I'm so excited to finally be chatting with you. And yeah, it's really interesting. Like you definitely nailed it. It is a retail store all about sustainable fashion, bunch of small brands and designers. But it is bigger than that. It's not just about selling stuff. It's not just about being a retail space. And we can get into all the nitty gritty and the crazy long story that kind of got to where we are now, because the premise was not to actually be a retail location at all. I just wanted to create a community that kind of showcased that you could shop sustainably in a bunch of different ways. We've all seen this kind of like movement of sustainability happening. um it just didn't apply to me, and I didn't feel like I wanted any of the products that I saw as marketed as sustainable. And then the ones I did want, I wasn't really sure if they really were sustainable. So I just started doing research and like finding brands and writing about them. I had no real plan at the time to sell anything or have a store of my own. I just was like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like an Instagram or a website where you could just learn about sustainable brands that were like a little bit like cooler and like maybe not as expensive and like just a little bit different. Um, and then a year and a little bit later, all of a sudden I have a store where all of these brands that I had been writing about, I get to work with them directly and sell their products and meet customers like you, who just want cool stuff that isn't like absolutely terrible for the planet. Um, so it makes me happy. It makes customers happy because they have a place that they can go and trust because I'm doing my research, unlike other places that are like throwing these labels on. And it makes brands happy. Most of the brands I work with have never been in a retail space before. So I'm giving them an opportunity to meet customers in a new way. So yeah, that's a very long ramble of a very strange whirlwind experience this whole thing has been. But I'm just trying to do things a little bit differently in this very crowded, sustainable world that we're all trying to navigate right now.
No, that wasn't a ramble at all. That was great. And it made me have a couple questions. It came up in my mind. I was like, okay, well, what are the different ways you were thinking about in terms of how people can shop? Like, what were those different ways that you were thinking of to, you know, be effective and to make it work?
Yeah, I think so. I saw the market and I saw the options available to us for those of us who wanted to shop sustainably. And it just felt super, super limited. It felt like everything had to be organic cotton or fair trade, or just these very like linear concepts, which were fine. I could ramble about why they're not so fine, but that's a separate conversation. But just these very specific labels on things. And I started kind of looking around and I was like, there's some brands doing some actually like super innovative stuff that is classified as sustainable, but because the everyday consumer isn't quite there yet, unless you're a fashion nerd like me, you have your life and you try and shop sustainably. So you go to whatever fashion, like fast fashion brand is telling you, here's my sustainable line, and you think you're doing a good job. And I don't think we should blame the consumer for that because that's the world we live in. But I was finding these brands that it wasn't about organic, it wasn't about super expensive like linen that was ecologically healthy or any of that. It was even like the overalls you're wearing, just as an example, that brand literally like upcycles denim scraps. So she gets a bunch of
Mm,
denim either from thrift stores, social find pairs that are damaged, things like that, cut them up and reconstruct pieces from absolute scratch. So they're beautifully new pieces for those for customers who don't really want to do the thrifting. They don't want, which is fine.
mhm.
Some of us love the secondhand thing and some of us don't. No shade for either. And she makes these beautiful garments that are 100% new without creating any new waste, without creating any new material. And I saw this whole lane of designers doing this. It's not just denim. I have another brand in the store who gets a bunch of t-shirts, anything with stains on it. She turns them into tank tops, into tube tops, into tote bags. It's just this new way of designing that is kind of revolutionizing everything, I think. But I was seeing no community kind of like welcome them all into the same space. So
Mm.
unless you were a consumer like me who was like, oh my God, upcycling is so cool. Like I wonder who upcycles, which takes a lot of research. Um, how are you going to find these brands? Like unless you really, really cared, this was not something very accessible to you. So I just started kind of like Instagram, TikTok, wherever I could from my phone, because at the time I had a full-time job. I just thought it was a cool little thing to do. I was just on my phone constantly on social media, kind of going like, how are people doing this? And then the more I did it, the more I was learning. Next thing you know, I'm finding brands that naturally dye stuff, and I'm learning all about the dyes that go into our clothing, and finding brands that get these insane colors from food waste. So this one brand I have uses like avocado pits and coffee beans and plants and nuts to literally make like beautiful silk scarves and tops.
Wow.
And it just felt like one brand after another, I was learning more and more. And I was like, yeah, this would be pretty cool if I could just shop all of these things in one place. Like I just want to be surrounded with this product all day long and be able to walk into a store and go, okay, this is upcycled, this is naturally dyed, this is that. And also just learn about it. Like the same way when you walked into the store, I'm like, I'll tell you how that's sustainable. I'll tell you how that's sustainable. They're not sustainable in the same way, but I can ramble to all day long about both because both are important and both are doing it differently. And I think it's super interesting. And I think I mean, I don't mean to get like nerdy about it, but I do think it kind of has this opportunity to make like a really serious impact on the way that we shop and like clothe ourselves. Um,
Hmm.
so it's all over the place, but it's really exciting because these brands are just doing things really, really differently.
Yeah, it seems like there's the one aspect of it is bringing all of these different brands together. Another aspect is by bringing them together, you're educating consumers through like dope clothing and through cool clothing, all of the different ways a clothing line or a fashion line or accessories can be sustainable. So that also allows them to kind of reflect and think about their shopping habits on like a normal day-to-day basis when they go into a store. Like that now there's if they know now that there's natural dyes, which I didn't know, now I'm starting to think about that when I'm in the store, in another store, not one that's like specifically focused on sustainable brands and sustainable production. And so like these, like I think about waste now, and a friend of mine has a dog bed business, and she just came out with a line where she collaborated with an artist and they used all the waste from past beds to create a new line of beds. And I was like, I love that. Like
Yeah.
I would like not only does it look cool because it's patchwork and I'm obsessed with patchwork right now, but it's also it feels good because you're like taking away the waste and you're using it because it's not like it's bad. What are some other examples or like surprising innovation that you've seen with some of these designers in the world of sustainability outside of the natural dyes and using scraps in order to create a new garment?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely it's kind of broken down into different categories because the ones I've named so far are kind of like more focused on the actual materials being used, which obviously has the largest environmental impact. So that's super important and is definitely kind of the first thing we think about in terms of sustainability. But to me and to the Butterfly Club, sustainability is like so much bigger than that. It's not so much just about the planet. It's like, well, what's a more sustainable way for the world to shop? Is it just buying things that have less of an impact on the planet? Or is it buying things from small brands that just produce in such small quantities that, yeah, maybe the material being used isn't from food waste, or maybe it's not upcycled, maybe it is a new garment, but what they're doing is one interesting and two just in such small production that it's not like imagine a world where there are no H&Ms and we
Mm-hmm.
all shop from brands like this, then it actually wouldn't matter as much what the garment was made out of. So like I have a few brands right now that I'm carrying that are artists based. So they're artists, like painters, they draw, whatever. And they're kind of picking their heads up, going like, okay, how do I sell my artwork? Like, it's hard to paint a canvas and get it out there. So I'm having a lot of brands kind of digitize their artwork and find ways to print it on clothing because it's easier to sell a T-shirt than it is to sell a painting. Um, and that's kind of gotten my gears going about, well, that's pretty sustainable. Like if you can create a job for yourself for your artwork, you're commercializing it to a certain extent where you're putting it on graphic tees, on tote bags, whatever it is. Again, the process might not be particularly environmentally sustainable, but your input, your footprint is so low because you're making 5 t-shirts made to order, which is also a huge
Mm-hmm.
concept in the sustainability world for my store. So I'll see what images work well. I'll test them out with garments that they already have. So they've painted, I don't know, a cool like strawberry graphic, whatever it might be. They've digitized it online. They use whatever software and they print up a few t-shirts with it. Whatever shirts they have left over, we try at the store, and whatever work, I order those again. And she only makes them, only prints them up, only creates them if I order them. So next thing you know, it's like she's not sitting on all this inventory, which is also super
Right.
sustainable for a small business. Like, of course, you want to be environmentally sustainable, but you also have a business to run. So how do we like keep small businesses operating in a way where one day they can maybe live off of their income? I really hope someone buys that canvas one day. I'm like, that is the goal. Until then, selling some t-shirts might be awesome for you. And it started with one brand and now I have 2 or 3 brands who do that. And they've all gotten together and used the same website and are learning from each other. So that community is kind of like
Mm.
making itself sustainable without me. I'm just putting them together. I'm not sure I make money on it if I sell the item in this store, but they're just working together. And to me, that kind of symbolizes everything I'm passionate about when it comes to sustainability and is kind of the reason I'm doing all of this. I'm obsessed with the upcycling, the naturally dying, all the nerdy scientific stuff. But it's also like, could we all just like imagine if you had like a person who made coffee and that was your friend that you went to buy coffee, and you had someone that made shoes and that was the friend you went. It's a utopian society, of course. Like I can't like, but it's a dream to just, if we all had small businesses and that's just the way the world worked, I'm not sure the planet would be suffering the way it is right now.
Mm.
And I know that's kind of like a goo goo gaga way to think about things. But that's what I'm trying to communicate with the Butterfly Club. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be these like a specific style. It's curated for everybody, a range of price points. Some of the innovation is super nerdy for those who are into it, and some of it is real simple. At the end of the day, it has to just be a cool t-shirt. Otherwise, it doesn't matter the story behind it.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy
Of
it.
course.
It's just about
Yeah.
cool stuff that isn't like terrible for anyone, and you're supporting a small female business when
Mm-hmm.
I sell something, and all of the brands that I carry are female or minority or LGBTQ owned, so you're helping them. It's just like, and we're not shipping it. It's all from the store. So you just walk in, you try it on, and you leave, and you're not going to throw it out because like there's a whole story about it. It's not like some random H&M
Yeah.
tank top that you're probably never going to wear again.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about as you were talking around supporting the small businesses, small designers, empowering them through shopping at the store, you're empowering them to sustain themselves. And that's like a new way to think about sustainable. Like sustainable is not just green environmentalism, like it is also about long-term growth that is not dangerous. I don't know what other way to say it, but it's the slow growth, which is why, you know, it makes sense why you have shop slow, because it's, you know, sustainable is, that's where the green term and what it now symbolizes and means comes from. It's about the healthy, steady momentum type of growth that builds on each other, but never gets greedy. It doesn't, like, it actually can last a long time. When you want growth really fast, it's usually pretty quick, rises fast, and that's when there's a lot of growing pains and other, you know, unintended consequences. So thinking about sustainable as helping the local economy, allowing people to sustain their own jobs or their own living through the things that they're passionate about, allows them to make things to order and not have to make things in mass in order to survive, because they're able to, you know, survive off of the things that they're making. I love just the metaphor of not having a bunch of inventory. Like, that just makes me think not just of the inventory that's sitting, but the shipping, like you were mentioning, like the shipping of all of that, but then also just the retail, like not retail spaces, but I mean like the storefronts and the warehouses, and like those are massive, and the pollution that businesses put on into the planet is the thing that's causing most of this climate change, because they have such scale, and it's an industry, and it's multiple industries. So it's not just fashion, it's all, you know, businesses. We're industrialized, we're a globalized, you know, society. So to think about going small again, because, you know, you were saying like this is like a utopia, but it also used to be that way, you
Yeah.
know, like centuries ago, like everything was small. Like, you know, when you go to Europe, a lot of times you're not going to one store like Costco to get all your stuff. You're going to this one place to get your shoes fixed. You're going to this other place to get your cheeses and your dairy products. You're going to this place because it's the local butcher. And so like it was really, that was small. It was almost like, it's like the older version of made to order, because everything was just what was available.
Yeah.
And I wonder, that even makes me think about like the value of saying like we've run out, and things just not being available all the time, or items not being shipped to you within 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, what is the true importance of that convenience? Like, do you really need it in 2 days? Do you really need that item? Like, you almost value it more when they're not available and accessible all the time, because that's
Absolutely.
special.
No, absolutely. It's mind boggling. Like, it really grinds my gears. It gets me so frustrated. Like, we have grown so dependent on clicking buttons and needing that item the next day. I hate to break it to everyone, but like, we were doing just fine before Amazon. Like, you could walk outside to your store, like whatever it is, you get in your car, whatever it might be. There's a way to live. We just got really used to things going a certain
Mm-hmm.
way. And when I say we, like, this is an American problem. Like, we consume in such great amounts. It's like, yes, this is global, but like the capitalism that we're a part of is so actually unbelievable that all of this kind of makes sense. And where we are right now with the pandemic, with climate change, with political tension, all of it makes a ton of sense because of how we're used to things, and it's all interconnected. And when I was kind of taking a look at this sustainable world, or in terms of like the marketing and the businesses behind it, I was like, this just isn't it. So much of what they're trying to do is against those capitalist tendencies. We like to shop, so let's not, we have to meet people where they're at. They want to shop.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we just get that mindset to change a little bit and to understand how these things are interconnected? Because what that will lead to is people really caring about the things they buy and going, wait, maybe I should buy an outfit from a small brand, and let's hear the story, instead of just clicking for a t-shirt on Amazon that I can't try on, that has to get shipped to me, and then I'll probably have to ship it back because I'm not going to like it. And yeah, it was $5, but the person was paid what to package it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that this mindset change is just part of like a bigger evolution that we're all kind of figuring out together. And like, that is the shopping slow mindset. It's one, supporting brands who take a lot of time to make their product. And yeah, that means it might be a while for me to get those overalls in again. And when I do, they're not going to look like that because those are one of a kind scraps that she can't like look in the garbage for the same denim. Like that's not how it works. And that does mean I get people all the time that go like, oh, do you have this in another size, whatever. And I'm like, that's the one that's going to be a shift. There is a huge shopping mindset shift that um I am waiting for and I am slowly
Mm-hmm.
training people for in the store. And I know it's not just like, oop, because we are very used to it. We are used to going online, clicking buttons, and then going about our days. There's something really beautiful about taking the time to learn about who made what you're wearing, what you're
Mm-hmm.
buying, what you're putting on your face, what skincare you're putting, what food you're eating, all of it. I'm focused on my little section
Mm-hmm.
because that's a lot, quite a lot to tackle. But once I started becoming obsessed with it, I kind of can't think about it. It doesn't mean I don't mess up sometimes and for convenience sake do what I have to do. And I'm also not about blaming people because is it accessible? Is it affordable? Is it all the above?
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge, this is like intergalactic, the problem that we're facing when it comes to consumerism. I'm just trying to get people to think about it a different way. And I think
Yeah.
shopping slow just kind of sums it up for me because it's like, do you know who made that t-shirt? Do you know how much they were paid to make that t-shirt? Do you know the materials used? Because it's either one extreme or it's the other. Either it has a really cool story that you're so excited about and you can't wait to get it, or it's probably really terrifying and sad and you don't want to know the answer.
Yeah.
So like, let's go that way.
Yeah. So one of the things I saw on your website were the different metrics you use. And those were metrics that I have not heard before. So it feels very like on brand for the Butterfly Club. And so tell us a little bit about those different metrics and those different ways that people can start thinking about how shopping small and slow can, help have a positive impact, not just on communities, but also on the planet.
Yeah, no, yeah. I spent a lot of time working on the metric and I worked with a group called Impact Hub. They're all over, but I worked with the New York office because I'm nerdy and I just needed other nerds to kind of like share some brain space with to kind of think through how how can I create like a checklist for people who care about this stuff and want to get a little better about it, but don't want to do the research and don't want to be super nerdy and like don't want to think too much about it because there are other people doing similar things to what I'm doing. There are other checklists you can have. I just felt like they were a lot and they weren't quite like they were so intense and not particularly accessible to the everyday person who was outside of that world. But we're also like a lot yet missing a lot of stuff that I thought was really important. So to me, it boils down to a few things. And it's not all encompassing and it's not meant to be like, do all this or you're a terrible person. But it's just kind of things to think about. So it's like, who owns and operates the business that you're supporting, like aka is that money going to Jeff Bezos or is it going to a minority owned business? Is it going to a local business in the neighborhood that you love and care about? Is it going to a single mother whose story you know and think is really awesome and like you want to support her but you also really like her product because she might not be creating environmentally sustainable things, but supporting her business is very sustainable for the planet, for the economy, for the all the above. So it's definitely one thing that we like to kind of get people thinking about, like really think about who owns and operates the business that you're spending money at. Two, we wanted to shout out kind of like mom and pop family owned businesses because that is the backbone of this country. That is like, there is nothing better than just seeing a business be passed down from generation to generation and seeing how that can keep a family on its feet. And I started this with my dad, and now my boyfriend helps me a ton, and my mom helps me a ton. And it's like, could I scale this? Not H&M status, but could I scale this to a point where like there's enough income that like my family could maybe be okay? I'm not quite there, but like that to me, if you find a family business that is at a restaurant, whatever it is, please support them with your money because like that is a really hard thing to accomplish. And I think it's a really beautiful thing to accomplish. And I see a lot of value in that. It's also a lot of what we've talked about is what materials are they using? So are they creating things by hand that they've maybe like, have they thought, is the person who made that garment or whatever it is, did they think twice about how they made it and what the actual materials are? Again, it's not about across the board, it has to be perfect, but just these things to kind of keep in mind. It's of course kind of thinking about people and planet. That's kind of our generic think about the environment because it's important and we don't want to downplay it. We just kind of want to put it in its own bubble to remind you that just because you shop environmentally friendly doesn't mean that those other things don't matter or that that's more important than supporting a small business that's owned by et cetera, et cetera. We also really believe in like brick and mortars. So get out of your house with the mask on and your hand sanitizer and go into these buildings that have a door and a storefront. Like it's important. We're meant to shop in person. We're meant to eat food in person. We're not meant to be these like weird ghosts of ourselves that just sit in our apartments all day and like type on the computer and like I mean this is great talking over Zoom, but like we're not meant to be on Zoom all the time. Like
Yeah.
if you need something on Amazon because you absolutely need it the next day and whatever, fine. If you can wake up and go to a brick and mortar the next day to get it, that brick and mortar will be happy with your sale. You'll have it in your hand. You can test it out. You can feel it. You can make sure you like it. You might even have a good conversation while you're there. Like, who knows? You'll get some fresh air. It's just these little things that are so simple that anyone can understand. You don't have to be a nerd. You don't have to care about the plant. Like, it's not all that big, but it's just these really simple things that if we can kind of just put them in the back of your, you'd be surprised once they're back there, you'll walk into a store and be like, oh, yeah, like that's kind of important. Like maybe I should do that. And or at least I hope so. But I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it with customers. I'm seeing them kind of understand like, oh, you're like a woman-owned business. What does that mean? And they kind of see me doing my thing. And I don't know. I see there's potential in like a movement bigger than just like the marketing of it. But really, if we all just shop slow and kind of keep these things in mind, it's not going to solve all of our problems, but it's definitely going to help.
Yeah, I love that. I loved hearing your explanation of each of those considerations and the metrics or even like not criteria because it's not like one brand needs to check all of those off, but it's just so you can know the difference between ethical shopping practices and businesses or what they're doing versus mindful, being mindful of who's starting it and how they're helping their community and sustainable in terms of environmentally sustainable. Can you tell me a little bit more about the brick and mortar one? Because that's the first time I've heard that. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting. I hadn't, yeah. So like, tell me a little bit more about the thinking behind that and like how that is like kind of falls in the, I guess the ethical bucket. That's kind of where my brain went. So can you
Yeah,
tell me a little bit more?
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of so obviously I'm obviously anti-Amazon, but like it's bigger than that. It's kind of we've just gotten really used to being on our phones. We've gotten really used to being on our computers. And it's not just about shopping. It's just how we socialize, it's how we date, it's how we go to school all of a sudden. Um, and I'm relatively young. I'm a millennial, so like I've seen both sides. I luckily graduated college before the pandemic, so I didn't have to deal with screens too much. But there's tremendous value in connecting to other humans. And I know that sounds like the obvious, but it really feels like, particularly in the last year, that we've kind of lost touch with that.
Mm,
Um, it's something we lost touch with far before the pandemic. We just didn't know it. And the pandemic was kind of a wake up call to be like, no, there's a reason we are designed to like speak and hang out and disagree and whatever it is. Like, that's what humans are supposed to do. And like, I just hate social media. I hate all of it. I have to do it because that's how businesses work. But to a certain extent, like, and even when I started all of this, it's like, I guess I could hit up brands and like start a website. I was like, one, I don't want to sit on inventory, but two, I don't want to be mailing packages all day. And when I thought about how do I want to spend my time, I want to interact with people. I want to educate them on these things. I want to get feedback so I can constantly correct. I want to meet brands so that I can learn, wait, you make this how? Okay, that's got me understanding. Because social, like the phone only does so much. So it's kind of like, if you think of, I mean, it's hard because I don't want to suggest that if you find a small brand on Etsy or online, that that's not beautiful too, because it is. Um, but if you live in a city, particularly, and you're not taking advantage of the brick and mortars out in your neighborhood, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice because you get to decide to a certain extent what your neighborhood looks like based on how you spend. Our
Mm,
voting power is our money, and I think we've kind of forgotten that, and that obviously is problematic because we don't have all have the same access and opportunity to money, but we have to think really intelligently about how we spend money, because we'll spend it on these online stores or just these franchises. So that's why we talk about mom and pop, because it's just, think small. When you wake up and you go to get coffee, just think about it. Do you want to go to Dunkin' Donuts? It's great coffee. If you want to go every once in a while, no problem. No problem. It's not, you don't have to feel bad about wanting Dunkin' Donuts. But maybe there's also a really cool coffee shop that you might like, and you would just be surprised what it does to your serotonin levels, and just your whole day can change. And they're definitely customers I interact with now at the store where I'm like, you don't really want to interact with me that much. Like, you just want to shop, and you're not looking for a best friend. That's fine. But I have noticed people come in and want to hang out. We are craving like
me.
and because we're all doing something. We're all trying to
Yeah.
it's such a crazy time right now. We're all trying to figure out what makes me happy, what can I make money at, how can I just wake up and like somehow survive in this crazy world that just seems to get more and more complicated the longer I'm on it.
Mm,
You have to
yeah.
talk to other people and go, wait, so you do a podcast? Wait, you have a clothing store? Like, maybe we should work together. Wouldn't that be cool? It's
Yeah.
just, and again, this is specific to cities. I know in other environments it's not as easy, and I don't want to come across as not understanding. New York is a bubble, and I'm very much in that New York bubble. But when it comes to New Yorkers who don't take advantage of the amazing small businesses they have on their block, I just can't wrap my mind around that. And
Yeah.
I think just get outside,
Yeah.
talk to someone.
Yeah. It's, if I were to sum that up, and it's really beautiful. It's about that connection, like connection to people, connection to community, connection to your like local community and neighborhood, supporting those local businesses, small businesses, brick and mortar, mom pop, all those things. And also the connection to the clothing you wear,
Exactly.
like wearing that with pride. Like, I was asked multiple times about these overalls, and immediately was like, this is how you get to the store. Just go talk to Maddie. Yeah, she'll tell you all about it. And so there was pride when I was like helping someone find
Yeah.
a gem of a store that's doing cool shit, and that's like, trying to make, that is making a positive impact. And so, now I'm like connected to someone. I don't know if they were tourists or not. It seemed like it, but like that, yeah, there's that sort of connection that um is powerful, and that isn't necessarily around ethics or sustainability. That's like
Yeah.
a different aspect of this, but it is just as motivating as the others to think about shopping more mindfully and slowly and small. So I love all of
And it
that.
is sustainable. It is sustainable. And it's sustainable to interact that way, but it's also, if you want to just boil it down to shopping, if a day comes where you're not feeling those overalls, like you don't like them anymore for whatever reason, you're not going to throw them out as easily as you will something else that you have no connection
Mm,
to. So when the day comes, if the day comes, hopefully it doesn't, but if that day comes, you'll think twice about it and you'll go, okay, maybe do I have a friend I could give them to make sure they
mm,
have extra life? Um, is there somewhere could I go back to the store? Maybe they want them back. Maybe they can turn them into something else, whatever it might be. Or maybe you continue loving them forever, but they rip somewhere. Again, we hope they don't, but let's say they do in this fake world where that will happen. But like, instead of just tossing them aside because you have no connection to them and it's just clothing, so who cares? You'll go, wait, but remember that girl I met? And then she told me about the girl that made them. Wait, where can I get these fixed? Maybe she knows. Let me email her and see if she can
mm-hmm.
recommend a local small business to fix the rip in the jeans.
Mm-hmm.
It's all connected, and it's all just this. I mean, I know I've said it 1,000 times, but it's this mindset that it is overwhelming once it clicks. Those gears just start grinding, and you see how it all goes, and it's overwhelming. But I think it's super beautiful, and it gives me some hope in
Mm,
humanity in a time where we all need a little bit of it. So
yeah.
I'm trying to be transparent about and genuine about all of it. I'm like, this is what's sustainable to me. There are a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
out there that would say that because of my fabrics, it's not all sustainable. I'm at peace with that, like I try and be genuine and like, hey, I do it this way, but like, listen, if you want to shop like this, that's fine. Here are some options. You can do it that way too. Like the sustainable.
Amazing, amazing time talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Um,
having me.
yeah, I love like just hearing your perspective, hearing your story, hearing that it's bigger than this store and the shop, which is, what I thought when I saw it and when we started talking. So seeing how much bigger it is in the community and all these other aspects of it was great. So thank you. And I will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.